Let's get sound check. Sound check from me, sound check from Gareth.
Hello.
All right, sound check from Jeremiah. All right, sound is good. All right, welcome everybody to Canhammer TV. This is January 26th, and it is week and a bit after release. Week and a bit after release of the Custodes Codex. And as promised, we are doing our Codex review, but not just any review. We are going to give you a review based on play experience and digested views as opposed to hot takes. Jeremiah, just give us a sound check again. Apparently, can't hear you. People can hear. People can hear Jeremiah. I got sound coming through on my end. It's a ghost. Still no. That's annoying. It's blipping on my thing.
Yeah, we can hear him, but if it's not coming through on the stream.
Talk again. Huh. I don't understand why that's not working. Can people hear now? Can people hear? Talk again, Jeremiah. Talk again. No. Okay, hang on a sec, guys, because we can hear no problem. Let me just try and re-add him here. Okay, try again, Jeremiah. Guys hear that one? Testing 1, 2. Well, we can hear you on Skype.
Yeah.
Okay, this is annoying. So I don't think it's Skype because we've been talking for the last 15 minutes on Skype. Maybe try turning yourself up, Jeremiah. I've got you on max input. Did you guys hear that? Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what is wrong because I've got... There's static. It's very faint, apparently. I don't know. According to my thing, it should be working. Okay. So, don't know how to fix the sound from Jeremiah for some reason, even though we can hear him loud and clear, and it's blipping on when he talks on the thing. Let's see. Undo, adjust volume. Undo. Try turning it on and off. Yeah, I've done that.
is it your stream software not liking the multiple inputs, or?
Well, it says on the mixer that when he talks, his mic is blipping up and down. So just like yours. Hidden mute. I don't know if there's a hidden mute. Why would there be a hidden mute? I mean, it shows like he's talking. It's not muted. It shows that he's blipping. Okay. Nope, there's no cable involved. This is virtual. Okay. Okay. So, sorry, Jeremiah, we can't get your audio working. Yeah. Okay. So, tell you what, Jeremiah, why don't you go have an early night then, I guess. Me and Glorak will continue, and then I'll get you on the next show when we talk about missions and secondaries and stuff. All right. Sorry, everybody. Can't get Jeremiah's audio working, but thanks, Jeremiah, for coming, and we'll carry on with the show, but then we'll get Jeremiah back for the next show. All right. That kind of sucks. Okay, are you still here, Gareth?
Yeah, I'm still here. It's a real shame we lost Jeremiah there.
Yeah, because you probably more want to listen to him than listen to me. But I think he's been to like 2 GTs already with the book. But we'll definitely get that experience next week when we chat to him. Okay, so before we get started, quick update. We are fully sold out on Can Hammer Team Tournament. According to BCP, because they had to go in there and manually book the event because the server basically crashed, we sold out in like 90 something seconds, and the difference between waitlist and getting a spot was milliseconds. They had to work out timestamps of when people paid, and it was a whole mess. But anyway, we have our 24 teams, but we have 7 on the wait list, so stay tuned. We probably will be expanding. We just need to make sure that's going to work COVID wise and that we have enough tables and terrain. So do stand by if you're on the wait list, and currently at 24 teams, but we'll probably go up. Okay. Let's go to the meat of the show. We're going to be talking about the Codex. And with me tonight, I have Gareth, a.k.a. Glorak, from the Discord, if you're on the Discord. And Gareth, tell us a little about yourself, and you've got a channel, and let people know where you're from.
Yeah, so I'm here in the UK, where it's currently 1:30 in the morning. I've been playing Custodes mainly since the beginning of 9th. Previously, I was a big Imperial Guard player, and got a very small YouTube channel, OBSEC Tactics. Do a couple of battle reports. We'd like to expand it eventually, but well, it's the joy of just starting out YouTube.
Yeah. And we were just talking about that. They do have big plans, people, so watch out for OBSEC Tactics. And I guess you play a lot of Custodes on that channel, too.
We've only actually done one battle report with Custodes, and that's since the new book. But I also applied for a WTC team this year with my Custodes. Right. So if I make it through the application process and all of that, then I could be turning up for that.
Yeah. And how much have you been playing this book so far?
I've had like 10 or 15 games. Okay. I generally play between 5 and 6 times a week. At different sort of local club events and practicing on Tabletop Simulator a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. So if you guys don't know, Glorak's one of the more kind of present, respected, experienced members of the Discord, and so that's why I asked him and Jeremiah, who is Battle Juice on the Discord. And you two guys are almost always around. and offering up good advice and good play experience to people. Unfortunately, Jeremiah couldn't join us tonight, but we're going to carry on and drill you for tips instead. Okay, so I just want to tell people how we're going to do this. If you want a full page-by-page read of the Codex, that is not our channel. Even this Codex, which is dear to my heart, I don't think I could do that kind of thing. What we're going to do is give you some digested hots and not-so-hots from the Codex, and then we're going to talk a little bit about our play experience and kind of lists that we've been toying with and playing at the end, and that'll be it. I try to keep my shows to about an hour or less, but we're probably going to go a bit over tonight. So thank you very much, Gareth, for staying up so late.
That is no problem.
Okay, we're just going to go in the order of the book. The first thing we're going to talk about, just in general, is the integration of Sisters of Silence. What's your take on this thing? So just to remind people, we now have troops in the form of prosecutors. Flamer girls are fast attack. And the sword girls, which most people have just forgotten about, are elite still. And we can take 1 unit of sisters troops per Custodes troops, and we can take 1 HQ per other HQ. And of course, you could run a whole army of sisters if you wanted to. I'm not sure why you would do that. So
I'm actually considering.
Well, you can do it. Doesn't mean you want to do it or should do it. But yeah. So what do you think of, we asked for a lot of these things, and we got them.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Talons of the Emperor shtick from 30k it's needed to come into 40k for a long time, and War of the Spider kind of helped, but it didn't really make sisters relevant. Whereas now, because we want to be building battalions or even Outriders with that 6th fast attack slot to take the Witch Seekers, it feels so good to have them in the list now.
Yeah, I think one of the instant things people started doing was making battalions with a unit of prosecutors as your cheap 3rd troop slot. I've seen people with 2 units of prosecutors for that purpose. And then, of course, we got some spiciness with the HQs, and we got Alea in the book now. So people have really been trying to put the sisters in, even at the just basic level of having like a 60-point troop unit. I know a lot of people have had fun with the Witch Seekers. I don't know many people have tried the swords at this moment.
I tried the swords in a game yesterday, and they did kind of fall on their face. I was getting them out of a rhino, moving them up the board, trying to make charge rolls, and unless they're supported with a close-by custode unit to start using your stratagems, which then you're eating into the stratagems for defense, they just didn't sort of feel great to use the Vigilators. But the Witch Seekers and the Prosecutors did wonders for the list.
Yeah. I think even if you're just bringing 60 points to sit at the back, like that's a third the price that we would normally have to pay to sit at the back. Although now you could sit a single Lars at the back too.
I have toyed, like I said, with a full sisters list, because I think I worked out that you can fit a Leia, a Knight Centura, 6 units of 5 prosecutors, 3 units of 10 Vigilators, and 3 units of 9 Witch Seekers, all in 9 Rhinos, just in 2,000 points.
That's almost like playing the old Battle Company style with sisters.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think it would do well into a psychic matchup, but then they just shoot them because they're still only toughness 3 with a 3-up save.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest problem with sisters of any type is they're really fragile, and you can't just YOLO them unless you literally want them just to die right after. Yeah.
Yeah, the action economy is there now in Custodes with the sisters and the Martial Catters. But yeah, I definitely consider, rather than taking like 2 single Alarus, taking 2 units of prosecutors in a battalion list.
Yeah. So I think we got the things we wanted. We wanted a troop unit and we wanted an HQ, and we kept most of their nifty stratagems and we got a bunch of other stuff. So I think all in all, we can't complain about what we got from the sisters. So thumbs up on that one. Okay. We don't have to talk about the building restrictions. One captain, that's not really a big restriction. And so let's just go on to shield hosts. So the other thing that we really wanted was for our shield host to be more fleshed out. Rather than just a trait, a relic, and a strat, we wanted some actual, like army rules, like, kind of like chapter tactics type things. And they definitely delivered on this front, with each shield host getting 2 rules and a 6th shield host to flesh it all out, which we didn't ask for an extra shield host, but it's certainly a welcome surprise.
Most of those shield host traits, just each individual trait, you put it in any other army and it would be considered the best trait in the game. And like, because we're such an elite army, those traits they're amazing. It's you can't. There isn't a single shield host I wouldn't consider.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, there was we're going to talk about our favorite in a second, which is probably Emperor's Chosen. But a lot of people gravitated straight to Emperor's Chosen, and for good reason, because it arguably is the best. But that is mostly because it's the obvious power, and the other ones are still good. It's and that's the amazing thing about it. It's almost like difficult to build a bad list. It's just all favors kind of different playstyles and different units.
I think Emperor's Chosen is harder to play right than the other shield hosts, but it does have, because of the flexibility of it, that much more of what I'd call a skill ceiling. That if you can hit that ceiling, you'll do amazing work with it.
Yeah. So what's your favorite shield host?
Currently, I'm leaning pretty hard on Emperor's Chosen, but as soon as the Forge World book gets Marshal Katters, I'm definitely considering Emissaries, mostly for like a Sagittarium spam list. Because being able to advance and fire both profiles with those things still hitting on 2s is, it's just going to be so much fun.
Yeah, so I'm like you, and 90% of Custodes players out there, Emperor's Chosen is the obvious first one to play because it's very widely applicable to any style of army. The kind of Master Artisan styles rerolls is just, it's like so good. Like, if you're going to use a rule almost every time you touch a dice, it's that rule, right? It's like such a huge influence on your entire game, every phase, everything you do.
I think the other hot takes, or sort of not really hot takes, but takeaways would be like in a mirror match, maybe Shadow Keepers might be stronger, but that relies on Custodes suddenly becoming a vastly popular army. And I know a lot of people gravitated towards Solar Watch when the book first dropped as well. But in the games that I've played, I've found that fallback and charge, you only really need it on one unit in a turn. So the Emperor's Chosen stratagem just gives you that.
Yeah. And that's the kicker with Emperor's Chosen is, we'll talk about the 4 to Mortals in a second, but with the Esteemed Amalgam strat, when you really need it for that one unit, you just got it. And that just gives you so much flexibility that none of the other shield hosts have. Now, it does require a lot of advanced planning because you got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Maybe like even 2 turns before you need it.
You do lose your mortal wound protection and the reroll on that unit for a round. So it does make them slightly more vulnerable. But just having the flexibility, again, it's that skill ceiling. People that are good at using it in the right situations, they'll fly high.
Yeah. And I guess, okay, so 4 up against Mortal Wounds is basically we have our invuln against Mortal Wounds, which is amazing, especially these days. I guess it really depends on who you're going to end up playing against. But, I mean, I saved 5 out of 6 Mortal Wounds yesterday on Wrath of Mars, just rolling good 4-ups. And that's just amazing, because normally that would have killed like 2 guys.
Yeah, and like, historically, Mortal Wounds have been a psychic phase thing, but they're just everywhere now.
Yeah. So so you can't say no to that. And so when they spoiled that, that was like an instant like, oh, this is going to be good, and it has turned out that way. What do you think is probably the weakest shield host?
So the weakest overall, playing as a pure custodes list, I think would be Aquila Shield. But if you're planning to lose your Martial Katas and take soup, they actually become really strong.
Yeah. We can talk about that a little bit when we talk about the Martial Katas, whether that's worth doing or not. But otherwise, kind of half of that host doesn't really help us very much unless you're going to go full hog into it.
There's a lot of AP1 in the meta at the moment, and like just having that ignore AP1 on your army, it's going to help you to save models. But then there's just as much AP3, AP4 high damage that just kills custode models.
Yeah. What do you think of Dreadhost? What do you feel like what they did with Dreadhost? Do you think it was good, bad? I thought it was disappointing.
It doesn't really gel with itself. I mean, the forward planning for their stratagem to have like, oh, this unit that comes out of Deep Strike is -1 to hit and can't be overwatched, but then you're still relying on a 9-inch rerollable charge, which isn't reliable. And if you're doing the Deep Strike, you're not getting the benefit of the other half of their trait because you're outside of 9, so you're not getting the extra AP until you've made the charge.
Yeah. I think Dreadhost, the trait 1 is nice, but they really needed to improve trait 2 with some kind of bonus, because like that's kind of the whole point of the whole thing, and the Golden Light strat got nerfed. Like it's basically almost the strat kind of implies that they don't expect you to make it in, so we're going to give you some protection.
Yeah, and as Funktastics just said in the chat, it's playing Dreadhost as a Deep Strike heavy is a trap, but there's also the fact that their stratagem is only when you Deep Strike. So they're incentivizing the Deep Strike while also sort of not gelling with a Deep Strike list.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Dread hosting was disappointing. Aquila Shield, I agree with you. Those are probably the 2 weakest. I think any of the other ones are super strong, especially situationally. Emissaries looking super strong. I mean, being able to always fight first is like super... super nice.
And if there's a lot of heavy dense terrain on the board, just being able to ignore all of those modifiers.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than hitting on 3s. I don't know if you feel this, but after spending all this time hitting on 2s, when I have to hit on 3s, it feels really bad.
Yeah, a couple of days ago I was playing a game and we were using the WTC layouts, and because on some of their heavier boards there's a lot of woods, I was just hitting on 3s all day, but then they were playing Space Marines and hitting on 4s. So.
You feel like a Space Marine. Okay, so the next section is stratagems. There's a lot of stratagems. Actually, we got a lot of reworked stratagems. We lost a lot of stratagems from the old book, some of which we will miss. and we gained some new stratagems, and a lot of stratagems were kind of updated to the kind of modern codex. So what kind of stratagems really stand out for you? Do you see yourself using a lot?
Well, because I'm playing a lot of Emperor's Chosen, the Esteemed Amalgam, Emperor's Auspice, I find myself using the name escapes me, but the one to change the kata quite a lot on a unit.
Martial Indiscretion.
Yeah. I'm finding that I'm using Tanglefoot a lot less than I used to. And as you were saying about missing strats, I think not having an Auspex scan was a big hit.
Yeah, so we're missing Auspex. We're missing... could lament the old Teleport Homer, maybe. The other thing that...
The new Teleport Homer is great. I played a Vexilla with single Alarus list when the book first dropped. And being able to turn one, advance your Vexilla up, and get a unit of Alarus 9 inches away, turn them into Solar Watch so they get the +1 to charge, and then just run in. Like a turn 1 charge with a unit of 4 Alarus, that will hit home.
Yeah, yeah. The other stratagems we're really missing are the couple of psychic defense stratagems that we're now missing. So the deny strat that we used to have that we could use from a unit within 12, that's gone, unfortunately. We lost the second kind of instant deny type strat, which was very useful. Now we basically just have one deny strat, and that's based off the sisters. So...
yeah, it's tied to the sisters, which it's painful to see those go, but I get it.
Yeah. I mean, we did get a bunch of other strats for the sisters, which in a lot of games, if you're not playing a lot of sisters, that's a bunch of strats that you'll just never use. But like Creeping Dread makes its return. That's a great strat if you can get a sister into the right position. That's so good.
That was the whole reason to take a unit of sisters in the previous book.
Yeah, Creeping Dread. Oh, so good. And then obviously if you're playing against psychics and you can snap off one of these cheeky kind of, extra peril things or the 4-up deny, even that got a little bit lost instead of being 3-up, 4-up, that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see it maybe tied to Wardens and Sisters, like it used to be. Like, even if we lost it for the other units. But then Wardens got enough of a boost with gaining the extra rules that they did.
So on the upside, though, so a lot of our stratagems got modernized to this kind of lower cost for smaller units, higher cost for bigger units, where the breakpoint was 3 and some of them is 4. And so that's interesting how some of them are 4 and some of them are 3, and which ones are 4 and 3. But in general, it does incentivize smaller units, but it makes our CP economy way better.
Yeah, so I think if you're playing minimum size units, you don't have a single stratagem that's more than one command point.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that feels so good. I'm going into turn 4s with like 4 or 5 CP, and I have not been conservative. Like, I'm just spamming Old Spice and Transhuman everywhere I can to save units, and it feels really good to only spend 1 CP for that.
Yeah, it does feel great. 2 CP Transhuman at 4 when most of the others are all still 1 at 4. It hurts, but you kind of already used to playing it if you played the previous codex.
Yeah. So one of the things I really like from the new book are some of the bike strats. We lost Stooping Dive, which, to be fair, in my opinion, has been properly used in the last, 2 or 3 years. I would gladly give up Stooping Dive for some of these things that we've gained for them. So we've got Fall Back and Shoot, which is awesome. Because of course, bikes lost that in general, Fly in general. And then we got the one I've used a lot recently is Sweeping Advance. giving them a 6-inch consolidate when they inevitably kill something in combat. I have found that really good for getting into good positions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will screen out a 3-inch consolidate to stop you tagging the next unit. But when you just 1 CP, oh, I'm now tagging your Leman Russ, and you shut down that blast weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as much a gotcha as like 6-inch heroics and these other kind of, I forgot about you could do that sort of shenanigans. The sweeping advanced strat is really, really nice. I really like it. So we did lose adamantium and oromite, or maybe it was the other way around, which protected our Terminators from AP 1 and 2. Do you lament that loss?
Greatly. If that had have stayed, or maybe had like Ignore AP1 baked into their data sheet, is what I was hoping for. But now the Terminators is an extra gun and an extra wound for some points over a Warden. So now it's a real choice.
Yeah. Yeah. The triple A strat did make, it's like, well, why would you take Wardens then? It was like, there was a obvious choice, and even made them competitive to maybe, bikes at the time. But now it's like, well, they don't have anything extra that the bikes don't have anymore. Bikes got an extra wound, and they're T6, so it's like, I think that's one of the reasons why the bikes have just come right back.
The bikes came back because they didn't go up in points and went to 5 wounds. When everyone's got 2 damage now.
I think people were generally upset that the Terminators didn't go up a wound.
Terminators being 4 wounds, I think, is fair.
Oh, it may be fair, but people are still upset.
Yeah, I mean, if you make Terminators 5 wounds, you have to make bikes 6, and then you're starting to talk like crazy dreamland.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get to that, but that's probably why we don't have any flat 3 damage melee.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the strats that changed that I used to found super useful was Avenge the Fallen. And so that used to be a number of people that died, you got that number of extra attacks per model still alive. But it used to count the number of models you've lost that turn. So, that was a pretty tight restriction sometimes. And now it's just basically +1 attack or +2 if you're under half strength. But no longer matters if you lost models that turn or not. So what do you think of the change to this stratagem?
I'll use it now. In the previous codex, I just wasn't using it. But there is a strange interaction which we might see in FAQ 4 down the line, where in one of my games I was against Metallica veteran cohort with loads of Rust Stalkers and infiltrators, and being able to because of their rule that means anything they're engaged in engagement range is considered to be below half strength. Now it's 1 CP for 2 extra attacks on every Custode model into that matchup.
That's interesting. That's interesting interaction indeed. All right. The other stratagem, which quite possibly is my favorite fluffy stratagem, and also I think pretty good, is the earning of a name. And I really like this, just like this guy's killed something, so he gets another name etched on, the inside of his armor. That's really cool. But it actually gives like a solid buff to that character. And our characters are already hardcore. So I really like this. I have yet to be able to use it, unfortunately, because you see the game's kind of over. But I really like this stratagem.
Yeah, I love the stratagem. Getting used to using it properly and when to use it is going to be difficult. I have used it once against Genestealer Cult because they have loads of characters, but then because of all of the extra damage they had coming in from Deep Strike next turn, my shield captain and he only had a small unit of bikes next to him, they were out of position. So I ended up losing the shield captain before he could utilize the ability that I'd given him.
Yeah. And there's so many buffs to choose from. It's kind of like a real strategic choice of where you think you're going to go next. But I really like that, even just from like the kind of fluff point of view. It's super cool. So one of the things we really got in this codex was upgrades to our HQs. Our HQs became like really good, and part of that is because we can take 5 warlord traits now and 3 relics. And so this combination of strats that gives us all the extra warlord traits and relics at 2,000 points, and Victor the Blood Games rework, I mean, it's just turned our heroes into having like a second data sheet basically for some of these guys. Like,
you can go full hero hammer with those warlord traits now.
Yeah. And I think I have barely seen a list where there's not at least 2 or usually 3 of our HQs, Trajan being usually one of them, and like 4 or 5 warlord traits and like 2 or 3 relics. You just accept that you're starting with 1840 points because Trajan's going in there, and you're just spending 3 or 4 CP like automatically.
Yes, you haven't seen my most recent list then, because I only actually used 1 HQ in that list.
Oh my goodness. It's like blasphemous right now. Yeah, and we'll talk about the HQs in a second, but like this is to the exclusion of like the Blade Champ, and it's just so high competition for our HQ slots right now. It's a nice luxury to have. It's super crazy.
Yeah, and the Blade Champion is really fun to use, and like there's obviously issues with getting an infantry model up the board, or just using it to protect an objective. But if I'm taking like 3 HQs, the Blade Champion is falling 4th for me. He's beautiful new model, like really nice rules, but I think you get more out of the other HQs, which is a real shame because I'd like to see him on the board more.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about martial Freudian. I called it indiscretion earlier, but it's actually martial discretion. So this is the strat that lets us change the active stance for 1 unit. Again, requiring a little bit of foresight because you have to do it in the command phase, and it lasts till the next time you get a chance. But being able to access any of your stances, even the ones that you've used already, just for a situational like boost or bonus is like so good. Yeah,
I mean, if you read it and it looks like 1 stratagem, but really it's 12.
Yeah.
I've found I've been using it quite often to make my bike captain advance and do an action, or action and shoot, for doing things like deploy teleport Homer.
Yeah. And it actually makes your katas really flow nicely because you can pick kind of this same 3 or 4 that you're going to use in most matchups, but then when you need to, you can just CP anything onto anybody, for those situations, and I really like that flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, like Esteemed Amalgam, it's a high skill cap to use it properly, but once you get it, you're just walking over opponents that don't quite know what's coming at them.
Yeah, for sure. So my 1 game against Admech, I had deployed my bikes 1 on each side of the board. So my opponent deployed 1 on each side of the board, and it was Dawn of War, so it was quite spread out. And then I castle and marked them all the bikes on 1 flank, and then made them all kind of advanced shoot and changed the kata on one of them, and it was like just overloaded that flank, right? And that was something you just could not prepare or really do much about, right? So it was pretty cool. So Old Spice, or Emperor's Auspice is the proper name. Obviously now for most of our units, 4 and lower, 1 CP, which is so good because that strat is just so demoralizing for people because they can't re-roll.
Yeah, that being 4 or less is the reason to take 4 bikes in a 20 wound unit.
Yeah, the Emperor's Old Spice is just it's such a great strat, and I'm glad we kept it. And Tanglefoot. So you mentioned that you're using Tanglefoot less now. Is it because it's only once per turn now, or are you having line of sight issues? Because these are the 2 new restrictions.
Mostly down to the line of sight issues, because I play a lot on the WTC maps where there's a lot of obscuring terrain. I imagine on other boards you might get more use out of it.
I could see it as the problem if you can't see. That was always so cheeky to just Tanglefoot throw a grenade at somebody when you can't see them.
Yeah, it was the bane of Orc the jump lists. Like they jump a unit of 30 boys. Oh, now you can't charge.
Okay, so we'll move on from strats. Overall, are you happy with our strats? Disappointed? What's your overall rating?
I'm really happy with the stratagems and the command point efficiency that we gained, because, like I said, we don't have any 3 command point stratagems anymore. And now they're 2 if you build a big unit and 1 on most of them. Yeah.
I really like this overhaul. I think the problem always before was running out of CP. You were great till you ran out of CP, then you started to lose. And now with Trajan getting an extra 1 and the regen and everything being mostly 1 CP, like your CP goes for days. Like it really does feel like you never run out. And it's great to have that, because we do rely on our stratagems a lot.
Yeah, and we always have done. And the change to Moment Shackle is much less of a hit because we've got cheaper stratagems.
Yeah. Actually, I've completely forgotten to use Moment Shackle in the last couple of games. Okay, we're going to talk quickly about the commander traits, Captain Commander traits, which are predictably now points upgrades and not CP, which again adds to the CP efficiency, because now we don't have to spend CP on commander traits now. And of course, we can have 2 captains with 2 traits, and that buffing our heroes again. So what's your favorite captain? First of all, I'll say we're probably never going to see the Guardian Shield Captain ones, because there's no reason to run a Foot Captain. So let's just skip that and go straight to Alaris and Biker Caps. What's your picks of these lots?
For Alaris, it's got to be Unstoppable Destroyer. The rework to that so that you can now use it while based and just be within an inch of any model is such a good buff.
Yeah.
I can see people maybe taking some of the other traits, but Unstoppable Destroyer is by far the best one in my opinion.
And the thing about UD, what's interesting, first of all, is that they FAQ'd it specifically before to not work when based, but now they've changed their mind. And
now rework have decided, yep, okay, 10 points is worth like being able to bounce yourself out of a trap.
And the good thing about it is it gets you an extra inch too, and then you combine this with the Praetorian Plate Shunt, and it's just so much weird, awesome stuff you can do with Unstoppable Destroyer. It's like, and it's only 10 points.
Well, with the Praetorian Plate combined with it, you can have a unit that an opponent fails their charge, like about 5 inches away, and you can still Praetorian Plate over there.
Yeah, and then you're in, and then you can pile it in some weird ass direction, either going around them, or
and then tag a second unit
into a tank, or like something that they totally had no idea was going to get tagged this turn. And then if you bring Impregnable Mind, now you got a 4 model OPSEC guy who's just like consolidating in weird directions, and it's just so good. Okay, so there's real debate right now: Tip of the Spear or Ceaseless Hunter for a Biker Cap.
Depends entirely on your shield host.
Okay, elaborate.
If you're playing Emperor's Chosen, where you can use Esteemed Amalgam to gain the Solar Watch traits, or if you're playing Solar Watch, there's no point taking Ceaseless Hunter. But if you're taking the if you're taking either of those two shield hosts, Tip of the Spear is just so good.
Yeah, because our characters lost their own rerolls, and the bike specifically lost to reroll wounds. That Tip of the Spear, even for 15 points on an already pretty expensive guy who got cheaper anyway, it just restores all that and makes him that much more efficient. And then you combo that with things like Auric Exemplar to just get more attacks or other things that we have. It just makes that shield captain way hittier than he used to be. Like, he used to fluff all the time. Like, he would go into like a stupid guard commander and like not kill it, like, so annoying.
Yeah, with Tip of the Spear and Auric Exemplar, like, you'll kill a guardsman squad, no problems. You'll kill an acolyte squad. Like, you'll kill most of a unit of Gene Stealers, even with their 4-up invul now.
Yeah. So I think Tip of the Spear does win out for the reasons we said. You really do need to fall back in charge, then spend your CP on that amalgam. But in my experience, he hasn't need to fall back because you just kill stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's still 6 attacks or up to 10 attacks if you're Emperor Chosen with that Warlord trait. I haven't found many times when I haven't wanted to fall him back, but that's because I use him for actions quite a lot. So I'll fall him back and then give him the kata for fallback and action rather than actually using that Tip of the Spear as much. But in those matchups where I'm not taking the action, I'll definitely be pushing that.
Yeah. I don't think you could be wrong doing Ceaseless Hunter. It's just you're going to roll some ones and wish you had reroll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a nice segue onto Warlord traits. I got to say, I think all our traits are good. Our traits used to be good, and they just all got better, actually. And
we used to have like 3 good Warlord traits.
But we could never take that many.
5. Yeah.
But now we can take 5, and like we have 5 good ones. And I mean, the whole thing with Trajan being able to take 2 means that you'll never pick those 2 for anything else, and that would.
And each of those 2 basically being 2 Warlord traits to themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, and so Trajan has 4, and then you still can have 3 more on top of that. Like, if all the other ones sucked and weren't worth the CP, then you probably wouldn't do that. But it is. They're like all worth the CP, and you can stack 2 on one guy. It's like, the traits are really good.
I was looking through the books, and I think I worked out that just based on his abilities, Trajan has the equivalent of like 7 Warlord traits. Because in other armies, Moment Shackle would be a Warlord trait. The 5-up Feel No Pain would be a Warlord trait. The extra CP would be a Warlord trait. And then you've got the 4 abilities that he gets from the actual Warlord traits.
Yeah. So Trajan just brings it and got cheaper, and Trajan's just my favorite person. But some of the favorites are back. 5-up Feel No Pain, again, obnoxious on the biker cap now that he's 9 wounds standard.
Yeah,
it really is. And Impregnable Mind didn't have to get better. We would put that on people in a psychic meta just to have a deny, but got better. Now that captain is also 4 OBSEC models.
Yeah, and in a pure custode list, he's your only source of a deny for that key power.
So I haven't played Psychers in my games, but I've just taken that for a 4 model OBSEC that can shunt around and heroic and unstoppable destroyer. Like, it just goes well with that, what that guy does.
Yeah, if I was building an Alaris captain into a list, I'd be spending after the changes 125 points to give him that combo.
Even Radiant Mantle, -1 to hit, like, that's good. Maybe not as good with terrain and all that stuff around, but and
I've been using that a lot on my action captain. So it's a bike captain with 5-up Feel No Pain from Superior Creation, and then Radiant Mantle for -1 to hit. Blitz him up the board with advance and action, and then, like, even if they make it through his Lookout Sir, like, they're not going to do a lot to him.
Yeah. It's really demoralizing, I found, when people put a lot into your captains, whichever captain, and then they're like, it's not dead. And you're like, nope. It's got like 3 wounds left.
Well, it's even worse when you. It's even worse when they're hitting him at -1 to hit, and you just go, "Oh yeah, by the way, you don't have any rerolls for 1 CP."
It's the feel-good moment of the year. Okay, let's talk about Silent Judge. Judge. So this is this nifty Sisters aura, which you can take on a Knight Centura. You can't take it on Alea because she has the crappy one. And basically, it does something to attrition. Who cares? But it has a 3-inch turn-off OBSEC aura. So this got a lot of people thinking, HQ, how do I get a Knight? You know, she's only 50 points. I need to get this. It's a CP to run this because they can't be a Warlord. And so what do you think about the actual true applicability of this Warlord trait?
It's an amazing Warlord trait, but I think it's on a model that's too squishy, and it's too close a range for that squishy model.
Yeah. So just the other day, I was playing against a 3-inch aura of Fight Last, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to avoid that. And in the same way, a 3-inch, if this was 6-inch, I think we'd have to make space.
If it was 6 inches,
yeah, we'd have to make space. Yeah, or maybe if it was like pick a unit, 1 unit within 6-inch or something. But yeah, I think in its applicability, pragmatically in play, you might occasionally get it off.
Yeah, it's on paper, it's one of the best Warlord traits in the game. In practicality, it's on a model that's too easy to kill, and you have to be too close to use it properly.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to relics. So the relic situation before was that you took 3-up Invuln, and that's it. Yep. And there weren't very many other good relics. Castellan's Mark was probably one that sometimes you chose, but generally you ran some captains, you put 3-up Invulns, and that was it. But now, first of all, we lost the 3-up Invulns by and large, and so we had to pick something else. But some of our relics got real buffed. I mean, we have like 3 or 4 good relics that you could make a case for. What's your favorite relic?
Castellan's Mark. Just being able to redeploy 2 units without any additional cost. And in those matchups where you find you're going to go second and there's nowhere good to deploy because there's not enough terrain, you can just stick 2 units of bikes into reserve.
For free, no restrictions, even if you put half your army up there already. Yeah, so good. Yeah. But it was really limited before. It would be usually on your Vex, and then you had to put it near the unit that you wanted to deploy.
Yeah, it had to be within 6 inches, and it was 1 unit. But now it's any unit anywhere on the board, and it's 2 units. So it got made so much better, and I think if you're not using Castellan's Mark, you're doing it wrong.
I think you have to take Castellan's Mark. And now with the new missions, you can put your troops, and then they come in on the side to do stuff. That's super good too for mission play. Yeah. I mean, so you could put almost a whole army into 2 Orions, and then Castellan's Mark both of them off the table.
But then you're taking 2 Orions.
I'm just saying, you could almost null deploy legally.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's someone on Discord that would do that.
But yeah, you would lose, but it would be fun. Okay. Yeah. The other, what do you think of the Obliteratum? Have you used it?
I used it in a couple of games. I stuck it on a Vexilla in Emperor's Chosen, and it's 1 CP. I'd only use it in Emperor's Chosen. So it's basically 1 CP to get an extra salvo launcher.
Yeah. On a walking dude.
Yeah.
It is kind of fun. I used it just last night, and I almost killed a Chicken Walker, World 5. And I was like, I thought for a minute, should I CP reroll this? Because I'm but then I've just spent 2 CP to do that, and I'm like, but it's kind of fun, but it doesn't make the cut if I'm trying to save CP. That's for sure.
No, and the Vexilla relics got better because they now don't replace the actual Vex aura now.
Yeah, so the Fulminaris, the old Vexilla relics were really bad because it turned off the aura that you actually wanted. Yeah. And so this keeps it, and this one adds ignore cover, which is actually really good, especially if you're going to run like your SAG list or something.
Yeah, if you put it in a SAG list in Emissaries, use the Emissaries Warlord trait to increase the range by another 3. Like becoming leadership 12 is, well, it's becoming leadership 12, but having a 9-inch aura from a 40 mil base to just ignore cover with all of that shooting.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So that definitely could see play in the right list. And then we come to the Praetorian Plate, which saw some small changes. For some reason, it now adds +1 toughness because why not? Which has come in handy, actually.
I'm not going to complain at a toughness 6 character.
Yeah, like it actually has come in handy. And then just allowing you to shunt anywhere within 3 inches of any unit, and then straight into engagement and not count as heroic intervention, LVO. Just like, yeah, and he's a hitter, and he has Unstoppable Destroyer, and he has Impregnable Mind and 4 mono offset. Like that triple combo right there, it's just so good. So good.
Yeah, it's really fun to use. There'll be games where you don't use it, but just the threat of it. And then there'll be other games where it'll mean that your opponent loses out on like 5 or 10 primary, and he gives you that 15 primary in a turn, just because he'll still objective.
It's like a 15-point swing on primary if you cap it in their turn like that. Like, and they can't do anything about it because that's already like the end of the turn, basically. It's just so good, and it's just so good. And you know what? Like, you can't really plan for it or really stop it without a lot of conscious forethought.
So because of the wording on it, the unit that he jumps to doesn't actually have to be in engagement range. So he just has to arrive within 3 of that unit, and then he's got a 40 mil base. So if you just like lean on to their objective and they come to try and take the objective from you, this Praetorian Plate can turn up like almost within 5 inches.
Yeah, it's like I say, like, unless you're constantly thinking about it and thinking, okay, how can I prevent it? What if he comes here? What if he comes here? You won't. Like, and in the heat of the game, you're not going to, unless you're
Well, if you're measuring the distances from your unit properly, you can have an entire objective covered with the threat of that Praetorian Plate.
Yeah. So unless you're some kind of 40k savant and you're constantly thinking about everything your opponent can do, you won't predict this. It's great.
No. Yes, as Kirkwin said, it will be 12 as of next week. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about our 3 secondaries. Don't want to spend too much time. I did use Auric Mortalis last night to good effect. But generally, people have not been pretty happy with our secondaries. We wanted the Auto 15 secondary that seems like many codexes have. Maybe Auric Mortalis is that in certain matchups. But the other 2 seem really lackluster and objectively sometimes worse than the actual book ones.
Yeah, one of them's a worse Killmore or worse Grind Down. One of them's a worse Stranglehold, unless you're going second for that one. And unless you know you're going second.
Yeah.
Auric Mortalis, when it's good, it's amazing. When it's bad, it's a 0, and it's the worst secondary.
Yeah. It's kind of like To the Last was. It's like...
Yeah, but I think we'll be taking Grind Them Down a lot more than To the Last nowadays.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk more about secondaries next time when we got Jeremiah on to talk about the new secondaries and the missions. So we have gone through to the data sheets. Okay. So before we talk about, katas. Oh, before that even. So the big fear was we were going to lose 4-up invuln. This, even the week before we found out about it, people were still dooming and glooming about losing the 4-up invuln. And when we got the 4-up against Mortal Wounds spoiled, people were like, oh, well, that's got to be replacing our 4-up invuln. But we didn't. And in fact, we got a slight buff because that 6-up useless Feel No Pain against mortals is now against other Mortal Wounds. So that's a buff.
Yeah.
It is a buff. So that's good. I don't think we'd have to spend too much time talking about it. We kept our 4-up invuln.
Yeah, and being a 4-up invuln faction, when most people are having invulns reduced from previous editions, it just feels nice to be the 4-up invuln elite faction.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't think we gained enough to have made it work if we had gone to 5-up invuln. Now that we know the whole book.
If it had gone to a 5-up invuln, I was very ready to say Codex is dead.
Yeah.
But keeping that 4-up invuln, we needed to be the army that we are.
Yeah. Okay, so the new thing we got is the katas, which is like our doctrines / Necron thing. I'm gonna do a whole tactica on how this works because it seems like it's still an area of major confusion. But anyway, we won't delve into actually how it works. But basically, it's like a doctrine that you can pick each turn, one of them. You can pick one of two, and then you can either stay on that one or you can move forward to another one. You have to pick 3 of them in secret before the game begins, but after you've deployed. So you have some prior information before you have to make your choice, which is cool. And there are 6 of them, but it seems already that we are generally gravitating towards 3 or 4 of them and then just using Marshal and Discretion to access the other ones when we need. Does that seem like a fair assessment?
Yeah, I found, I think every game I've used Dakatari, just because of the usefulness of that producing the pile-in move. But I generally even then use it third, because in the late game is when I'm going to be in combat.
Yeah. So my kind of standard sequence now is like Callistus, Rendax, because just people have lots of vehicles and shit these days, and then Dakatari is the tertiary, with the switching into of Conservi, or double dipping one of those as needed, and that seems to be like a nice kind of standard thing to start off of. But so what do you sorry,
I'm using Callistus first a lot, mostly for the advance and shoot, because I'm not expecting to charge turn 1.
Yeah, and that's obviously works great with bikes.
Yeah, which, as anyone that's read the book will know, bikes got good again.
Yeah. So what do you think of the katas in general? So initially people were like, well, we don't think the katas are great. We're just gonna, because you can only take them if you run the whole same shield host in your whole army. So, but people like to sometimes run double pat with 2 different shield hosts, but then you don't get the katas. And some people are like, well, that's better. What do you think after some play experience? Do you think we're better with the katas?
Much better. Because if you lose the katas, you lose action efficiency that, as an elite army, with especially with the new secondaries or new mission primaries coming in, there's a lot of actions there. So we're going to need access to some way of doing an action and still performing.
Yeah. And even the Conservi kata is, while it's good, it still doesn't give us a super amount of flexibility, but just having it in your pocket, either a standard or for a CP, is really, a powerful thing to be able to access, because we didn't get that anywhere else.
unless your plan is to do raise the banners turn one with like 3 units of troops, um, Conserve I is basically relegated to being, oh, I'll use the trait when I CP.
Yeah, yeah. And I think actually that the stances themselves individually have some neat bonuses and neat things that you can really use in specific situations. So it really lends itself to using martial discretion to just pop back and forth, and just have like a general game plan. So I think the kata system is really really nice.
Yeah, I generally find that like my first turn is either Callistus or Salvus, whether I want to advance and shoot or get the extra range. But if I'm playing a matchup where I'm going to do banners, then I take Conserve I turn one.
Yeah,
yeah. But getting good at using those again, our book just needs more thinking than it used to.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think one of the skill points of our army is which katas you take, and maybe even more so which ones you end up swapping into at the right time. And that, along with the use of Esteemed Amalgam, is kind of the two big skill points of playing the army, because those are both things that you have to plan ahead, sometimes well ahead, maybe into your opponent's turn, what they're going to do on their turn. And that's difficult to do sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're any good at chess, you might be good at using these, because predicting 3-4 turns ahead in chess is like predicting half a turn in 40k.
Yeah. But I like katas, and apparently soon we won't be able to mix shield host anyway. But I wouldn't be doing it. My double pat days died when katas came out, because I think they're definitely worth it.
Yeah, well, for the longest time I was using Imperial Guard plus Custode Soup, so that list wouldn't get katas. But now I've finally made the switch to pure custodes.
Yeah, would you say then Soup is dead? That is the intent of GW, to kill Soup.
I wouldn't say Soup is dead, especially because Aquila Shield works so nicely in a Soup list because of their stratagem. Or like in a list that's sort of very similar to my old tournament list, which was 7 Custo Dreadnoughts and a Scion Patrol. The Dreadnoughts don't get katas anyway, so you might as well soup up in that list and still get the Scions.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how much that still gets played. But I think people should definitely experience this before dismissing it, because it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, as you say, a skill point. And you'll either predict the game correctly, and everything, like, it'll be like the stars aligned, or your opponent will throw a spanner in the works.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to data sheets. We don't want to end up talking about every single data sheet, but there are some data sheets we definitely have to talk about. The first person we got to talk about is Trajan. Trajan is back. He never really super left, but he's definitely back. 10 points cheaper for some reason.
Yeah. Well, he's now 30 points cheaper than he was in the previous book.
And people remember he used to be 250 points when he first came out, which is ridiculous.
So in the space of like 3 weeks, he's gone down 30 points, and over 3 years, he went down 60 before.
Yeah. So Trajan is the man. Just come right out and say it. If you're not taking Trajan, you're not doing it properly. It just gives you so much. Like we said, like maybe 4 Warlord traits worth, his own rules. He now is a beat stick, actually one of our few sources of flat 3 damage in combat. Even his little pea shooter gun is pretty good. Extra CP regen. There's just no reason not to take Trajan for 160 points. They're literally 0.
I'd say there's one reason not to take him, but that's again because I play on WTC maps. And fly keyword is basically necessary on those maps.
Okay, I guess that's fair. But yeah, even if he never shoots or kills anything, and just stands there and hands you warlord traits and like the odd aura, I think he's still good. Yeah, and
He's one of our best characters, but I think different styles of tournament, or even just different styles of play, will decide whether whether he's an auto take or whether he's a consideration.
Yeah. So the one thing I haven't used actually is his ability to swap the katas around. So you can swap primary, secondary, tertiary around. I haven't felt the need to do that yet. That probably is going to come up at some point. Do you like that? Do you think that's very flexible?
Upon first reading, yes. After looking into it more, it's for fixing a mistake rather than sort of because of the wording where you can't go back to a kata that you actually used a stance from. It's a lot less powerful than initial reading.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the shield caps. We got the foot captain, as we already said, probably never going to be used, and then we've got the Alaris captain, which I think we're only seeing because of the plate and unstoppable destroyer combo. That's the only reason we're seeing Alaris captains, really. And the biker cap.
It's enough of a reason to take.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the biker cap is just as good as always. Now we don't have to spend CP to make him 9 wounds. You got an extra attack, and you stack on him those things we already talked about. And this guy is just so good.
Yes, yeah, I think the biker captain is actually the auto take out of our HQs, because I think you'll see him in basically every list.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid, opinion on that. I mean, he got cheaper too. Of course, you're spending points on the CC trait for sure, but yeah, he's just got so much utility now. Some of the secondary changes kind of favor Bike Captain 2 now. And with the katas and he can do almost anything now. Now he actually kill things, whereas before sometimes you would go into a unit of guardsmen and get stuck.
Well, the new lance rule being +1 to wound instead of rerolls, like it's hurt by transhuman, but
otherwise it's great.
Yeah,
and going to string 7 helped that too, because now you're wounding most T7 vehicles on 3, whereas before it would have been a force. So that combination of extra wounds and the spear upgrades and obviously the salvo upgrade, and then the combination of traits and things, biker captain's you should have a biker cap.
Yeah, I just can't see any reason not to have one, and even taking like double patrol for 2 of them.
That is pretty obnoxious. Yeah. Huh. Good ideas. Okay. We won't talk about the Blade Champ. He's very good, but just doesn't cut the mustard because our other HQs are so good, which is really saying something because, he definitely is good. Trying to deliver him is the issue, as with all foot combat characters. He's wearing less armor but not running any faster, which is annoying to me.
In a vacuum, against in any other book, he would be one of the best HQs. But because our book is so stacked with those other HQs, he's just not pulling his weight for me.
Yeah, and he's not a captain, so he doesn't get access to that stuff. And
he does give +1 to charge, but then you're having to get him there first.
So it doesn't really help him. Yeah. That's too bad. I like the model, but yeah, it might come out just in some test games, but I don't see it right now. Okay, because people are going to get on me if I don't spend 30 seconds talking about him, we're going to talk about Christopher Walken for a minute here. Christopher Walken, a.k.a. Valerian. So I will give him his dues where it's deserved. He is better than he was. No argument.
I'd only take him if you're going to see a lot of Catan or Gazgol in your local area.
Yeah. Yeah. So unless you're in that situation, don't take Christopher, because you can't take any of the extra stuff that makes our captains good on him. And that's basically the end of that.
Yeah. And he has one of the worst warlord traits.
Yeah. The only one that you wouldn't pick, he's got it.
Yeah, that one warlord trait that I might put on a blade champion because he can get 14 attacks.
Yeah, poor Christopher. But at least he kept his Misericordia, because Alea also has a Misericordia. So I don't know what they did with that. Maybe he got a second one. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. What's their status? I don't really know. But, okay. So let's skip forward. I want to talk about, in general terms, the loss of D3 to flat 2 damage. So first I'm going to say, as one of the super moaners of D3 damage, and well on record for that, I cannot complain that we went to flat damage. And I understand that if a lot of our units got flat 3 damage, because we're basically auto-hitting, then that would become very unmanageable. I understand all those things. But and I knew that we were going to go to flat damage because that's what the whole game has gone to. But it still feels kind of icky that at least something didn't get flat 3.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see the axes get 3, but then in that situation, would we have had 4 damage Trajan?
Okay. I don't see the problem here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rest of our book, like, we got generally more attacks because of the use of katas, and while we lost the 3-up invuln, we became so much more killy.
Yeah.
The being flat 2, like, there's a lot of -1 damage out there, which is where the outcry comes from. But we have enough attacks to deal with it.
Yeah. We got, as Mr. Funk says, we do have kind of seemingly more ways of making sure we wound too. And
we got higher strength with most of our weapons, and like pluses to wound, much more easily accessible.
Yeah. I actually feel like maybe there was an opportunity to put extra damage into one of the katas, maybe like or Dreadhost or something like that, +1 damage to axes in combat or something like that, 1 unit or something. I don't think that would have been too crazy, but I understand why our whole army didn't get like 3 damage axes, because then we'd all just be walking around with wardens and just chopping shit up.
But what we did get is flat damage 2 in combat, basically army-wide, and using a kata stance, army-wide sweep attack.
Yeah. And banner still gives us attacks, and so it's not too bad. I think, as you say, if there wasn't all this -1 damage, we wouldn't be whining at all. Yeah.
No, like if we weren't in a -1 damage meta, everyone would be like on the roof screaming in glee.
Yeah. As anybody who's played enough D3 damage will know, D3 damage really does suck. Yes, it can spike sometimes, and you can be like, "Whoa, that was cool," but I gotta tell you, that happens way less than it sucks.
Yeah, and rolling D3s always took so much extra time.
Yep. Especially when they had feel no pains.
Yeah.
That was the worst. Okay, let's talk about shields versus spears for Guardians. Do you think the shields cost 5 point more? The swords got buffed. Spears got buffed too. And so where do you think that argument is at these days?
I think it's pretty even. At the moment, I'm on the shield train for that. because a unit of 3 is 150 points, and there are 1-up saves, 0-up in cover. So now AP2 has still got you a 2-up save.
Yeah.
And it's taking AP4, which is melter gun range, to get you to a 4-up invuln. But then that stratagem for 1 CP to have the whole unit be -1 to hit in combat because you've paid those 5 points for shields.
That's a really good
and then
strat.
you combine it with turning off rerolls for a CP. And now you're just taking so many less hits.
Yeah. Yeah. So my 3-man unit tanked, 10 Ruststalkers last night by turning off rerolls, -1 to hit, and one guy survived and kept that objective. And it's like, so I think I think, as you say, it's a fair choice between the two now, and I think you just have to decide what you want them to do.
My main use for them is if I'm using them for backfield, although after an FAQ I might be switching them all for Sagittarium anyway. But I use them for backfield. They're protecting the objectives, and then I don't need them to be strength 7 because they're not going forward and fighting, because that's what my bikes are for.
Yeah, yeah. And as we indicated before, if you want, you can castle and mark a couple of guys coming in off the side, doing actions. They're fairly hard to kill. That's some good play there for your Guardians rather than just sitting at the back. Now that you can leave Sisters at the back, or even like an Alaris just sitting at the back. So I think there's some new life to Guardians for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually a consideration for me. I know there are some people just taking them with the shield before anyway, but I'd pretty much given up on the troops choices for a little while.
Yeah.
And now I'm considering them for every list.
Yeah. I would think the battalion is kind of the default at the moment. So like Sisters, some Guardians, and then lots of other slots.
See, I'm actually leaning a lot into Outrider detachments, because we have such a stacked fast attack choice now.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. Wardens. Okay, so I had originally given Wardens a poo-poo, and then I kind of gave them an okay because I did some rune hiding bodyguard shenanigans, which is fun, but it's interesting. They are our cheapest way of getting axes. But that's it. They lost their deny thing, and they seem to still don't really have a huge place in the army, stacked between Guardians and Alaris Terminators, who got cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, they're still cheaper than an Alaris, but the Alaris get the advantage of native deep strike. The wounds count is from 3 to 4. It's not here nor there for me. If it was 3 to 5, again, it would be another matter. But I like them for the bodyguard rule, and that bodyguard rule combined with a 6-inch heroic means that you just have a safe objective at home. But even if the rest of your army is forward moving, like loads of tanks, bikes, and all these things, just a single unit of Alaris with an infantry character sat on your home objective, especially with the new missions only having 1 objective in your deployment zone each, like that objective is safe.
Yeah, I do give them a small thumbs up now for the bodyguard rule. I think 100. I don't think I would spend a ton of points on that unit. I think like 3 is fine. And it still requires a decent concentration of effort to dislodge those guys. And even 1 guy left will still bodyguard. So, I think they have a role if that's what you're looking for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like a unit of 3 bodyguards and an Alaris captain with Praetorian plate and Unstoppable Destroyer, like that'll set you back 375 points to hold your home objective and still have those plays across the whole board.
Yeah, that dude just, when he needs to, he just pops out and the Warden's just like, see ya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't need you here anymore. We've got it. Like,
Okay, let's talk Alaris versus Aquilon. This is a commonly asked question throughout their existence. And what's happened now, of course, is that assuming that Aquilon get all the same rules that Alaris have, you have to pay more for Adrathic and for Fire Pikes. But base, despite being the same model, except literally a bigger base, 10 points more. What do you think? Where do you think Aquilon fall? Are they worth the extra 10 points?
no, not at the moment. Because they're not likely to have any auric weapons for the double tap. They're that much more expensive, and you can take an Alaris in a unit of 1 to like do an action or hold an objective. Or
what if you can do that for the Aquilon as well?
If you could take a single Aquilon,
the only disadvantage there would be that dude has like a stupid freaking big base.
See, the big base would help with the heroic interventions.
Yeah.
If it was a single Aquilon in a unit, as long as their points came down to be more in line with the Alaris, then I'd consider like maybe one with a Fire Pike and a Talon. Just to sort of blend any little OBSEC unit that comes near him.
Because in effect, if you want Fire Pike, you're paying 20 points for it, because you have to pay 10 points more for the Aquilon and then another 10 for the Fire Pike, and that's definitely not worth 20 points. No. And again, it's when we come to bikes too, it's like, why is this Terminator, who's exactly the same, 10 points more and like $60 more? So it just doesn't make any sense that this Terminator would be more points.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real shame. I've got 9 Aquilon on the shelf, but I'm only really using 2 Alaris out of the ones that I've got of those on the shelf.
Yeah.
I think both types of Terminators have got play, but at the moment Alaris are winning.
Yeah, and that was probably the intent of the book. We'll see what happens. We still don't know the fate of Forge World, but okay. Vexilla. So the Vexilla got a big change. The banners basically got, I would consider, kind of modernized. So they give out, light cover, dense cover, and we still have the +1 attack. The stupid weapon options for the Vexilla are still stupid. We don't have the crazy teleport homer anymore, but we do have a situationally nifty ability to just teleport people around, and I have used that. It is useful. So do you think we're going to see a lot of Vexillas? I mean, there's a lot of dense terrain. There's a lot of, ignore modifiers and stuff like that. Like, do you think the Vexilla still has a place in the list?
I think it does. Like, if you're taking any number of Alaris, it's good for helping them. Like, if they get themselves out of position, you can just bounce them back to your home objective for a CP. Like, if you've used your Praetorian Plate to steal an objective from an opponent for a turn, you can bounce him back home. I think if you have the points, you want the Terminator Vexilla over the basic one, because the grenade launcher is better than the shooting from an axe or a spear.
Yeah, and you can put the Obliteratum on him just for funsies.
Yeah, I mean, you could go Obliteratum if you're playing Emperor's Chosen. If you're not playing Emperor's Chosen and taking the Obliteratum, I think it's a bit of a meme.
Yeah, so I think the Vexilla still has a space. I think if you were a keen Vexilla runner before, the effects are basically the same, except now they can be ignored. And you would probably still interested in looking at the Vexilla now. So yeah, I think he's kind of a net sideways, probably.
Yeah, I can see a lot of lists with him, and like as a couple of people in chat have been saying, like a unit of 3 Wardens with the Praetorian Plate Captain or a Vexilla. It's very similar points, but that's how you hold a home objective.
Yeah. Okay, let's cut to the good stuff. Bikes. bikes have had a long history in our codex, from the heydays of 18 bikes, stooping dive mayhem, to getting kicked in the butt by knights, to being 90 points basically for years and years and years. And bikes are back. They are definitely, every list starts with 2x3 bikes. Whether you want more or less, but it's like starts there. And bikes have come back in a huge way. Mostly on the back of extra wound, 5 wounds. They can even survive these D3+3 hits now, which is so good when that happens. The spears, as we talked about already, and the improved salvo, so good. Like, they just obliterated things last night. Like, improved salvo,
yeah. Especially with the amount of good targets for them in today's game.
And then also, like, the stratagems that we talked about that we like with the bikes, the traits and the katas, and it's all of it combined has made, and they got cheaper. The bikes are just really good right now.
Yeah, I mean, best unit in the codex for me.
Yeah, and smaller table too. Smaller table, lots of terrain that they can mostly bypass in the movement phase. So all of that kind of plays in to bikes being really good right now, and people should be running bikes.
Yeah, I mean, I've almost gone to the old beginning of 8th list. Actually, I'm currently running 2 bike captains with 3 units of 4 salvo bikes.
That's almost there. You should just go all the way.
Yeah, it's scary. I played against a Space Marine Dreadnought list the other day with it, and they lost 4 Dreadnoughts turn 1.
Yeah, so you could end up doing even double patrol and get a few Sisters units to hold stuff, and then bike spam, like in the old days with the Loyal 32 or the Rusty 17.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, bikes are really good right now. Just really good.
Yeah, I think 8 or 9 is sort of, especially if you're just using codex units and not delving into Forge World, is where you want to be. Like either 3 units of 3 or 2 units of 4. But at the moment, I'm sort of limit testing, so 3 units of 4 is sort of it's a hammer.
Yeah. They're just really good. So on the flip side of that, we have the Dick bikes, or the Agamatus bikes. I like to call them Dick bikes. And for some reason, even though they're exactly the same data sheet, they are 95 points base, and then extra points on top for the weapons. And again, I'm not sure why that is. So for Alaris and Aquilon, you could debate because their weapons are baked into the cost. So maybe if you consider Lastrum and Fist 10 points more than Axe and Ballistus Launcher, then sure. But these get literally the same, and you're paying for the weapons anyway. So I don't understand why it's 15 points more expensive. I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, so the Agamatus, they come with the heavy 3, strength 6 bolter, don't they? Baked in before you upgrade to the other weapons. So, I mean, that's better than a Hurricane bolter. So, maybe if they came down to 85 base, and then you paid maybe 10 points to go to Las Pulsar, then you'd see a lot.
For a brief moment, we had this pipe dream that actually 95 was including all weapons, and then so we were all trying to find our Dick bikes from the shelves.
Oh yeah, when that rumor was running around, I put a list together that had 12 Cyber bikes and I think it was 7 Agamatus.
Yeah, especially now you can play them without those ridiculous speeder bases. But yeah, I don't know what Forge World are doing with that, or GW, as the case may be.
We're just waiting for an FQ update. But I was going alongside with the fast attack choices. The Palace tank is an all-star now with the Emperor's Chosen Shield Host trait.
Yeah, because his 2 shots become way more reliable. because the two shots really sucked before, right? Like it's like, oh, I missed a couple. Like it could really suck, and it's so cheap still 95 points. It's nifty. It can get you engage. Yeah,
it gives lookouts to your bike captains, and it's fast enough to keep up with them.
Yep. It's definitely an option in fast attack, and I think actually Venatari. So people lamented their death because they lost superior fire patterns. But actually, I think small units of Venatari with spears are really good. I used a unit last night. They came in, they blew away 1.5 chicken tanks with their lances, and they failed to charge, but they probably would kill them in combat. They're good for actions. They're 12-inch fly OBSEC still, which is very good with native deep strikes. That you paying points, 5 extra points over a Guardian for 12-inch fly native deep strike OBSEC. You know, I think they're good.
Yeah, and it boils down to how stacked our fast attack choices are now, which is why I've been looking a lot more at Outrider detachments or like Outrider plus Patrol.
Yeah, and Trajan's extra CP makes it a little bit nicer to take those detachments.
Yeah, in the previous book, I was running with like 7 or 8 CP to start with, and then the CP regen. But now that our strats are cheaper, starting with like 8 CP is not so bad.
Yeah. So people should try the Venatari. I don't know if they really work in big units anymore because you're going to pay more for strats to protect them. But I like little min units of just harassment style kind of jetpack dudes. This is really nice.
Yeah, like 2x3 maybe with spears. I could definitely see now.
Yeah. Okay, so sticking on the Forge World theme, so you're a big fan of SAGs. Where do you think they fit in with shield guards and stuff like that? Assuming they get kata and all that sort of business, and assuming that their Misericordia stay 3 points.
So, assuming that their Misericordia stays 3 points, which, in fairness, they do get the most out of a Misericordia compared to any other unit we have. If the points fit, I'll take SAGs over Shield Guardians. But it's a toss-up, right? It comes down to how many points fit in your list as to whether you're filling out like your battalion or your patrol with SAGs or Shield Guard.
Yeah, I mean, they're especially with not Rendax, this 4-inch range, extra 4-inch range. That helps them a lot get into range, especially with the little pea shooter profile.
Underslung grenade launcher, but yeah.
And the Callistus helps them obviously a lot first turn, especially reach out and touch. So
yeah, the 3 units of 3 of those in like an emissaries list that can advance, action, shoot, fire both profiles and still hit on 2s.
Yeah, even like Castlin's marking 2 units that come in off the side and start blowing shit away. Like, that has play too. So I think and that's the cool thing about our new book is that actually just so many things you could play.
I think situationally they're better than the Shield Guardians, but it's do you have those extra 10 points? Because I wouldn't take them without the Misericordias.
Because then they just get stuck in combat forever with like guardsmen.
Yeah. Yeah, you start using Esteemed Amalgam to put them in Dreadhost just to make you 1.
Yeah, it's not like White Scar's 2 damage fists, Yeah, so that's cool. So the Guardian special spears, unfortunately, I don't think they're going anywhere unless they get Auric, and then we might see the Melta spears, maybe.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, but even then, like, they're more points than a Sagittarium.
Yeah. So I'm not sure those guys are going to be going anywhere. Our dreads, so Achilles, Galatas, Dread, they're still good. They're still good. They don't get the katas, but they're still good. They get the traits, and they still do what they used to do.
Yeah, for months and months, I was spamming our dreadnoughts. Like, I say running 7 of them in a list along with some scions. That list still works if you want to try it out, but I think a support dreadnought rather than a whole list of dreadnoughts, given how much better the rest of our book got.
Yeah, it's almost like a shame not to play it, right? But I can still see a dread running up the middle, you know, any of the dreads, including Telemon, like one dread coming up the middle, giving you body, lookout sir on your characters, just being a little bit difficult to deal with, killing things. I think that's still definitely got play.
Yeah, or like a single Aculus in Deep Strike. If you're playing the Aculus, I think you want to put it in reserve or Deep Strike because you don't want it to be blown off the board turn 1 with its 5-up invuln.
Yeah. Okay. So Telemon, what'd you think? Came down to 260. Think Bertha's still around?
Not having core, so it's not getting the dense cover from the Vexilla. Not being able to use the Shadow Keepers to reduce strength on it. It's so much less tanky than it was before because of the combos we used to use to keep it alive.
Yeah, it's lost a lot of durability.
Yeah, and with upcoming books, it's going to lose even more.
Railguns.
But yeah, I think if you're playing a support dreadnought, then maybe you're paying those points to get that bigger base for your Wisdom of the Ancients type strat. Because rather than being on like a 60 mil base, it's on a 100 mil base, so that extends the range on your aura by so much for like table space that it can fill. Yeah.
Is that 100 points though? I guess that's the question. 90 points, 100 points.
Yeah. Well, 100 points is...
It's a lot now, right? Like, it's a lot. Our whole army got cheaper, basically, so that makes those decisions real decisions. The price difference between the Telemon and one of the other dreadnoughts, they can all use the same stratagem, right? And so, yeah, it's difficult. And they're core, so, yeah.
Yeah, I maybe like a Galatus as a support dreadnought. You've got that smaller base, so less area that its rerolls can cover. But it will get the -1 to hit from the dense cover on the Vex. It will won't get the Shadow Keepers, but you weren't using it as much on them anyway.
Yeah.
I think the changes to Wisdom of the Ancients and the bonuses from Eternal Penitent is worth taking 1, maybe 2 dreadnoughts in the list.
Okay, and Caladius Tank. We don't need to talk about the Gravcare. Caladius Tank, 205 points. Again, Emperor's Chosen really helps the Arachnus Cannon like a lot. And it doesn't need to be babysat anymore, but like Trajan sitting there or whatever to be fairly reliable, still fast, still takes up.
It became more mobile because it doesn't have to be tied to a foot captain to give its rerolls. Obviously, you could use a bike captain, but you weren't getting the rerolls to wound. In Emperor's Chosen, I love them. In the previous book, I used to be really hot on the Iliastus for that AP3. But yeah, I can definitely see 1 or 2, or some people are even running 3 in a list.
Yeah. Again, like, I don't know. I just get this overall feeling that we don't need to be a spam book, We have so many things that can do so many different things. Everything has a role, but how many do you use of each thing, Except maybe bikes are kind of falling into that now.
Yeah, but even bikes, there's an argument to save yourself like 400 points nearly to just have like 2 units of 4 instead of 3 units of 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see how that all works out. It's still very early days. I guess I guess we can mention the two big Forge World flyers, but I don't know. I don't think people should play those. I mean, I don't.
They're fun. I mean, I've got one on the
Yeah.
shelf, but
There's so much more you can do with those points now. And they're not core, and they don't have
yeah,
-1 strength strat, and it's like, not that great.
yeah, it's the aircraft. I'm still not sure that Titanic models and aircraft really belong in the
No, I
game,
don't like them at all.
because they're just impossible to balance. They're either too good, or they're not
Yeah.
good enough. There's never been a situation since they came out where they've been fine.
That includes knights. I put knights into that category, by the way. All super heavies.
Well, they're Titanics, like, yeah. I don't mind the armigers and things, like, yeah. There's a whole list with just everything is armigers, but Titanic models and aircraft specifically, I think, are just so hard to balance.
Yeah. Aircraft. I hate the whole game is a two-dimensional game, and trying to make it three-dimensional just doesn't work. And aircraft have never worked. They've always felt weird and janky, and yeah. And I'm glad now we've limited it. There's like 2 at the most. I don't even care if they're good or bad. Like, I just don't want to see them. It's just like, next thing you know, we're gonna get those stupid air wing rules where they have to fly in like a certain shape, and then
Yeah.
those are so stupid. Okay, so we're gonna finish off here by talking about what kind of lists you're looking at right now and why you're running the things you're running.
Yeah, I mean, so my most recent list it's fairly spammy. It's a single bike captain with tip of the spear, salvo launcher, um, radiant mantle and superior creation, with 3 units of 4 salvo bikes, 3 palace, and then 2 Caladius and 2 units of 1 Alaris.
That's crazy that you get all that in, actually.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a lot.
it just about fits. It's but yeah, it's one of those lists that I'm gonna have to tweak it, because I'm gonna want to add some more infantry to it. So, like, maybe like drop a unit of bikes, and put in like a unit of wardens and a vexilla or something to hold a home objective while everything else goes off, and like maybe go down to 1 Caladius and use those points to get like a couple of units of sags or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the moment it's running at 8 CP in a single outrider detachment.
It's crazy that you have that many units of expensive things, actually. And I guess that speaks to the points reductions and things that we've had. But then also, if you cut one or more of those things, you get even more units.
Yeah, well, it's we're 340 points for a unit of 4 bikes. You can fit a vexilla and a unit of wardens in
Yep.
that.
Easy.
And and having 3 of those units just be a single 95-point palace,
Yeah.
it opens up the opportunity to sort of out deploy your opponent, and then use the Castellan's Mark redeploy to like move your Caladius out the way, or 2 units of bikes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's cool, and I'd like to know where your spam bike list goes to. I'm at the moment still in the stage of I'm just trying as many different units as I can. So I have put the 3 wardens with the sort of weird bodyguarding stuff in. I had the vexilla in with the obliteratum. I'm just trying a whole bunch of different things. And I'm basically running your standard list as far as we can see these days, with Trajan, the 2 other characters all kitted out, 2 Guardian units, Sisters, 3 single Alaris, and then I've been trialing the Aquilon, so I have 3 Talon Aquilon, and I've got my current list has the Vexilla, and then 2x3 bikes and a unit of 3 Venatari. And I've just found it a hoot to play. It's just so much tactical flexibility, regardless of what the mission is. I can send these guys forward. I can send these guys forward. The Alaris can stay at the back, or the Alaris can drop forward. I can outflank whoever I want, whether it's Guardians or a couple units of bikes, redeploy, be conservative, be aggressive. The stupid PP cap flying around, tapping things. Like, it's so much fun to play. There's so many things going on. That it seems like I can drag and drop any units to replace other units without really losing a lot of effectiveness, just a slightly different play style, and it's just super fun right now.
Yeah, and so many of the units are just at that right price range. Like a unit of 3 is like 150 points, or a unit of 4 is 200, and like 200 points in our current book is There's a lot of play with 200 points.
Yeah. Everything seems just that little bit more points efficient and can fit in just that little bit more. The CP points efficiency definitely feels good, and it's just a super flexible, adaptable codex to play right now. I'm really liking the MSU playstyle versus big hammer, unwieldy hammer units. I'm really liking the MSU playstyle, and with the cheaper strats, it really goes nicely. And it just feels like everything has 1 or 2 roles that it can fulfill, and you can pick out of those 2 roles what you want it to do. There's a lot of movement, even without the bike zooming back and forth. There's a lot of movement. It's just a super dynamic faction to play right now. I think they did a really good job at changing how we play, because before it was just like, even with the dreads, right?
Yeah,
it's like, you can't kill me.
Before it was our first codex, and we had Forge World update after Forge World update. But the new book, it feels like a fleshed out faction.
Yeah. Super happy with the book. What's your feeling overall with the book?
I'm going to keep playing them because I love them. I don't think there's any faction out there that could pull me away from Custodes now, with their new book feeling so good to play.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, we're going to go to questions and then finish off at the 2-hour mark. Does that sound good? Okay, I'm not going to go too far back here. There are some... Okay, here we go. You ready? Going to be rapid fire because we've probably answered a lot of these. Okay. Trajan, starter scrub. Stud.
Yeah, Trajan's good. If you've got the points for him, use him. But I think I'd take a bike captain first and work out from there.
All right. A triple captain list. 1 foot, 1 bike, 1 Alaris.
If it's 1 bike, 1 Alaris, and Trajan,
there's no reason to take the foot captain right now. Yeah.
No.
His CC trait where he can switch the katas around, that's kind of cool, but that's not a good enough reason.
No, and at that point he's starting to breach on the cost of an Alaris captain anyway.
Yeah. Sisters auto include. Some sisters.
No,
I don't think so either.
Not auto include, but they're nice to have.
Yeah, for that cheapness, cheap unit. Which non-returning stratagem will you miss the most? So I think we talked about that. Okay, these were before the actual book. Okay, Shadow Keepers still king of hosts? No. But
good in the mirror match, but they're not the all-comers list that they were.
How do we kill Death Shroud or Dreads with all the -1 damage? Well, I think you just hit them more times. Or you salvo.
That and salvo.
Salvo.
Yeah, you use salvo launchers and you Dakatari to no, not Dakatari. The sweep attack one. I've lost the name.
Yeah, Dakatare with where it goes down to 1 damage and you get extra attack. Stance 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Most epic, clutch, or interesting interaction in one of your games so far? Interesting question.
Oh. There's been so many. Like it was probably to do with a Praetorian plate
that comes
captain,
immediately to mind.
who just like stole the game by swinging like the primary for like 2 turns and then bouncing back to a Vexilla.
Yeah. I think the Praetorian plate has to definitely take for most interesting, fun interactions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's that we're using Avenge the Fallen into a Metallica Psycharian spam, but that's an interaction that's possibly going away.
Okay, do you think 3x3 units could be overkill? No, obviously not. Favorite art, lore, or short story from the new book? I gotta say I haven't read any of it.
Haven't read any of the lore. I've just been delving into the rules.
Is it any different?
Favorite art? I haven't read any of the lore in the book.
Guys.
I've just been sticking to the rules.
Sorry, guys.
Favorite art? It came with Shadow Throne. It's the Blade Champ.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. It's just a nice piece of artwork.
You mean you don't like this one with the weird axe and like the stupid dreadnought on the back?
If it had a Galatus or an Aculus behind him, I'd
talking about?
Pass. But that is, but it's Ugly Dread behind a sheep and axe.
I really went hard on the Ugly Dread today on the Discord. Yeah. Okay, Calcin's Mark. Sometimes, always, or never. Always. I think
always
that's the first relic.
Redeploy is just too powerful.
Yeah. Obliteratum, worth taking on a Vexilla. Sure.
Yes, if you're playing Empress Chosen.
Okay. What weapons of Forge will get Auric? Well, we don't know, really. We think probably the lances.
I'd like to assume the Pyrothite, Adrosite, and maybe Venatari lances. Definitely pistols, definitely not Sagittarium.
Yeah. So we answered this already. Sagittarium squad spam list viable. Yes, I mean, I don't know what you mean by spam, but a bunch of Sagittarium in emissaries.
I think there's a couple of people talking about like taking like 30 Sagittarium.
You could do that for sure. So what do you think of this whole kind of 1 unit Alaris thing? So the next couple of questions are about that.
At the moment, I'm using them for either holding home objectives or deep striking and being annoying in general.
They are very annoying.
With the new missions, I'll have to play the new missions a few times more to really understand the use cases of them, or whether I want to change them to different units.
Yeah.
With the old missions, they're great.
Yeah.
New missions, I still need to test.
So there's some questions here on matchup. We're going to save that for next show when we talk matchups, missions, and object and secondaries. Caladius, we talked about. This question from Sean. Sorry, Sean, is just way too long. Thoughts on how we play into new missions? That's going to be next show. Alaris versus Aquilon, we talked about that. Vexilla, we talked about it. Full Hero Hammer. Battalion plus patrol, 7 HQs. Fun, stupid, or effective?
All three. I mean, it's stupid because it's ridiculous. It's fun because it's hilarious. And like it'll come into some good matchups and some really bad.
And the problem
ones.
is you can still only have 2 CC traits and 3 Warlord traits, and 2 of them have to be on 1 guy. And so the ones that don't get that stuff just won't really perform as well.
Yeah. I mean, Someone try it and post the results. Like, I'd love to see it.
Hungry Bird asks, what tactics would you consider using to keep your Blade champion alive?
If I was to be using him, probably Deep Strike or Wardens and using Obscuring Cover.
Just move from cover to cover. I'm really annoyed they only move 6, but anyway.
And then, like, maybe putting him in a solo watch list, so he can give himself advance
so
and
bad
charge.
that he could move maybe 7-inch. You know. All right. So we're going to talk matchups next time, and we will talk about the mirror match because that's getting more popular. Any surprises after your testing game so far?
Yeah, so in my first couple of games, I found that using the Praetorian Plate Captain, it's very easy to use him badly. But like, he'll either swing a game for you or against you. But yeah, and I guess we just got better at doing everything that we wanted to do.
I guess my biggest surprise is actually how fun it is. And it like I said already, it plays like our army has never played before. You know, our army's never really played like this before.
No, we've never been able to do actions like we can now. And our board presence and just that sort of threat of influence is so big now.
Yeah. So there's a fear that John Lennon's going to win LVO with Custodes, and then we're going to get a big nerf.
So I've been discussing in my local area about like the potential for like a February data slate. I think the points changes that we got in chapter approved we could very easily see those being reverted back to what's written in the codex. Because we're going to outperform our previous data.
Yeah.
But then Tower only just round the corner.
And Eldar.
Like, yeah, and
So
Eldar
might
not
sneak
long
under the
after
radar.
From what I've heard. I think we're going to see a lot of Tau coming up, which, from a lot of rumors and things, like they're going to be pretty good against us.
Well, they're the whatever top selling, faction or whatever, apparently. So if they get good, you're going to see a lot of Tau. And when they're good, they are traditionally good against us, which I hate. I hate Tau.
Yeah, I mean, at least from what I've seen, Tau aren't going to be the Overwatch faction anymore.
Yeah.
So
Okay, a whole bunch of questions on matchups. Best worst Shields host, we already answered that. Optimal bike squad size, 3, 4, or 5?
Oh, definitely not 5. A lot of arguments for 4 because the only stratagem that becomes 2 is the transhuman strat, and if you're in a position to need transhuman on them, like, they're a toughness 6 body. Like, I generally don't like to use it to go from wounding on 3s to wounding on 4s, but if it's wounding on 2s with decent damage, I'll use it.
I think going from wounding on 3s to 4s is okay for 1 CP, but not for 2 CP.
Yeah. But again, like, how many bikes are you playing in your list? Are you playing 8 for 2 units? Are you playing just like 1 unit? Are you playing 9 in 3 units? They're all viable choices, except 5.
I think if it's your only unit, 1 bike unit, then 4. Yeah. If you're playing 2x3 or 3x3, then 3. Yeah, by definition, because you're playing 2x3. Okay. That is all the questions. Gareth, thank you for joining me tonight for this monster review session. Thank you very much. I know it's super late for you right now, so I really appreciate you giving us your insights and play experience on this show. Thank you.
It's fine. It's great to come on, and anytime you'll have me back, I'll happily come on.
Definitely take you up on that. If people want to know where to find Gareth, he's at OBSEC Tactics on YouTube. Check him out. He's also a regular on the Discord, where we talk Custodes basically 24 hours a day. So do consider joining us if you're into Custodes. And shout out to Jeremiah for turning up, and we could not get the sound working, but the next show will be a show on matchups and the new missions and secondaries. So that'll be a good show, and we'll get Jeremiah on for that. So thanks everybody for watching, subscribing, following, being patrons, being community members, and being members of the Discord. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll catch